welcome to this week's podcast, Family Tree Talk, with me, Helen Tovey, editor of Family Tree, and doing lots of other things with Family Tree, like the whole webinars and courses and e-newsletter. And who are you?
I'm Nathan Ward. I'm also co-host on this podcast and general dogs buddy for Family Tree magazine.
And you're social media wizard and designer, and we're getting lots of nice fan mail about all your family history journey as well, Nathan.
We are.
Comments, the podcast comments, when we get an email from somebody or a comment, we get so excited, don't we? We absolutely love them.
Yeah, it's great. It's nice to hear that people are listening and, more importantly, enjoying listening to us prattle on about any old rubbish, but it's good.
No, it's a real relief because we actually love prattling on about it and doing our podcast. I mean, it's our kind of favourite thing probably to do through the week with our work. So if people email in and say they like it, it's great because then we can show our bosses that it is good. We can carry on doing it. Carry on talking about our family history. So we have got a few shout outs to do. So a few months ago, we asked whether anyone wanted to do a pledge, and Nick got in touch, and he was researching his granddad and his granddad's 5 brothers, each of whom served in the First World War. So that is quite incredible to have 6 brothers all serving from the same family. Anyway, Nick has been working on his pledge and he's nearly brought his project to fruition. He's nearly kind of found out something about everyone, so which is good effort. And he's very, very pleased that it looks as though everybody survived and no one had too much of a terrible time with injuries and things. So hopefully we're able to give an update for that in the future. And I think we've got a few other shout outs to do for other people who've been in touch. Should we do them as well?
Why not? Why not?
Yeah. So we had a lovely email from somebody. We did go a little bit green with jealousy because they were on a lovely sunny holiday overseas, and they sent a picture of them reading Family Tree magazine on their holiday, and they said they love listening to the podcast as well. So we were a bit jealous, weren't we?
We very much were, because it's been horrendous weather recently, hasn't it? Yeah, so yeah.
Yes.
Nice if you can get out and do that.
Yes. And then we had another, that was from Andy, and then we had another lovely message from Rosemary, and she said that listening to the podcast is like meeting up with friends to discuss their latest progress. So I know, yeah, we're definitely your friend, Rosemary, definitely. So yeah, all nice things. So anyway, how have you been getting on with your research this week?
Quite well. Well, I'll let you decide. I'm not sure. So, obviously, last week I mentioned about having a relative, David Hearn, who was born in India.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to explore his parents to see why they were in India.
Mm.
But I needed to flesh everybody out a bit more before I sort of got on that side of the journey. So this is going to be hard for me to explain because there are 3 Davids. Each parent has named their first son David, and there are lots of Davids going on. There's equally a lot of Elizabeths and / Elizabeth Julias who seem to have swapped their names around. So it looks like this family have decided, right, we're going to name all our children after ourselves. So I don't know who's who and what's what, but I have sorted it myself. But as I tell you, I'm going to get confused, I imagine. Right, so, no, I'm lost already. Yeah, no, so I've got this guy called David John Hearn, who was born in India. He was born in 1864. So I needed to find out about him, where he was, what his parents were doing, etc., etc. So I went to do my usual census run on him to see, right, where can I place him and what can I learn from him. And initially I thought that one it's less relevant because I know that he comes over to England, and him being in India was obviously just the fact he was born there. His journey starts with him being born in Lucknow in India in 1864. I then looked for him on the 1871 census but couldn't find him. That bit then gets a bit more interesting. I'll come back to that. I found him in the 1881 census. He was in Wales, which is interesting. It's a new location for me again. So he was on I think it was, is it just a separate census for Wales? I think when I was researching, it was just Wales. Anyway, whatever. Somewhere called Mold, then I find him married to his wife, which is obviously a good person to be married to, in 1889. And then it just sort of follows a census path there where I can locate him in 1891, 1901, and it carries on. So then I went back and looked at his dad, who is also called David John Hearn. I mean, even the middle name's the same. It's very irritating. I obviously had details for him from the marriage certificate of his son to his wife. So obviously he appears there. So that's the start of me finding out about him, David John Hearn. I found out he was born in 1835. And again, I started the census run on him, which we might have to come back to this. I'm not sure, but I was terrified because I was looking at like the 1841 census and the 1851 census. And these are like the earliest ones I've looked at. So it's obviously slightly different to what I'm used to. It's all very handwritten. I know they're all handwritten, but it felt more like a list. I can't describe why I think it's different. It felt more, oh, we've just jotted this down, as opposed to this is a real official document. It felt a little less concrete for me. So I might have found him living in Suffolk with his parents and 4 siblings. And then 10 years later, again with his parents and a few more siblings, working as an agricultural labourer. So that was the age of 16 for him. I then can't find him until 1881, which again is in Wales. So that's when they've come back from India. And he's with his 4 kids. Then I've got a couple of gaps, and then I find him in 1901 with his daughter and granddaughter. So nobody else. And the daughter is interesting me because the daughter has a child, but on this census still has a maiden name. But I did a little bit of digging later, and her maiden name of Hearn then changes to Shaw, but she's down as a widow. So there's a story there. Something's happened. I need to dig into that even more. And then going back, flipping this all around, I looked at David John Hearn Sr.'s children, which is David John Hearn, who was born in India, his siblings, to see where they were born. And he's got 2 sisters. One's called Julia, though Julia might actually be called Elizabeth. So it's Elizabeth Julia, and they've swapped it round. I'm still grey on this because I've not really delved in too deep. But I found that Julia she was also born in India. So they were still in India in 1873. So chronicling when they came back, etc. The next sibling was called Emma. She was born in 1875, but she was born in Suffolk. So at some point between 1873 and 1875, that's when they come back from India. And for the whole Indian aspect of it, that's where I've got to. I've got lots of other mysteries, but don't tie into the Indian aspect of it. So I've sort of narrowed down the time frame of roughly where they are, when they went, when they came back, but I don't know anything beyond that yet.
Brilliant. Well, you've done well, haven't you? So you raised lots and lots of interesting points there. You touched on whether the census for Wales was completely separate to the census for England. So yes and no. So to do with legislation, the English and Welsh census is always and always has been exactly the same census. But when you go onto the Ancestry interface and you're an Ancestry user, then you can choose to just search by the individual country. So you could just search by just England or just Wales over on the right-hand side, isn't it, when you're searching the census? And that's really good what you did there, because the more precise, if you know you're looking in Wales, then you want to go and search just in that country, don't you? You want to be able to discount lots of other search options. So rather than just doing like a global great big search using the main search interface on Ancestry, it's better to try and drill down to the record collection you're using and use the precise search interface for that record collection, because it comes up with different specific search fields. So it enables you to search on different sorts of information and tailor your search so it's as helpful to you as possible. So if you did that, that's really good. So if I'm going to go and search the census on Ancestry, I would rarely just search across the UK. I would try, if I had knowledge of whereabouts I'm looking, I would try and just search for by the country, just to help me. Why have a search list with loads of irrelevant things in it? I think of any possible way you can do to get rid of those ones are irrelevant. So that's that point. And then you also touched on the fact with the 1841 feeling very different, feeling more like a list, much less concrete. And you're absolutely right. It does look a lot more like a list. It's got fewer columns. They're capturing fewer data points, aren't they? It has really sketchy addresses. It might just have the name of the hamlet or the village. Yeah, it's very, very possible you're not going to have a street name or anything like that to help you. So it is more like a list, and it doesn't have the details concretely saying, the relationship to the head of the household. And I think it was just recorded in pencil. So, if you scroll back in the day, if you're wandering around the houses and you're collecting, the enumerator's collecting up the household schedules and he's going home, you'd assume that he was using a pencil because he was recording things there and then. But I think he just collected the household schedules in, even for the 1841, and filled them in at home, but they tended to be filled in with pencil, which made them harder to digitise when the records were digitised, so they can be a little bit less legible than later ones. And everything just feels a little bit more sketchy, doesn't it? And clearly people thought that back in the day, because they took the 1841, and then 10 years later when they did it again, they're like, okay, let's make this better. And so they included loads of different columns on the 1851 onwards. And they kept, something which has always happened, hasn't it? The census has evolved with additional columns coming and going. So like the 1911, known as the fertility census, I had questions about how many children were born. I think it's 2 for the woman, and how many years the couple had been married, and how many children the woman had had. I think that's right. It says clearly, you just have to read the column headings. I've just forgotten what it is, and how many are still alive. Anyway, that was viewed as impertinent, so then that got withheld from the 1921. So anyway, the census document evolves. It's a real live document kept by our ancestors that changed over the years. So that's waffle about the census. And then I love the fact you've managed to pin down to just a 2-3 year period, the date at which your ancestors came back from India between 1873 and 1875. That's really helpful. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It just helps you fill out their story, doesn't it? And gives yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed that part of it, because that was like the deduction bit. It was like, right, I'm trying to place them. Obviously, if they're in India, they're not going to appear on my censuses. How do I locate them? So it was quite cool to go through the siblings and see, right, okay, that was born here, that was born here. I enjoyed that. I felt quite smug and proud of myself for that little bit.
And you said that the father of the family was an agricultural labourer. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. But later on in life, now I can't remember which census this is, he was down as a butler. So when he's come back from India, maybe it was the 1881. So he was a butler. Also, his daughter, this Julia, or Elizabeth Julia, she was born in India. I think she was born in Murray, which again, I don't know. I've not researched India. I don't know where that is. But he was born in Lucknow, was the brother. She was born in Murray. And then, obviously, 2 years later, they've come back to England, and then they're in Wales. But following her being on the 1881 census in Wales with a family, for the next 3 censuses, she's a servant living with different households. It's all different people at each 10 years. The only discrepancy is actually the in-between years. So 1891, she's a servant in Bolton for this family called Hannah. 1911, she's down as a widow and she's a cook for this Holdsworth family. But in between that, she's living with, like I said before, she's living with her dad and her daughter, and that's it for that particular block. So there's an interesting story there, I feel. There's like a gap in between.
There definitely is. So do you know what your next steps of your research are?
Absolutely no clue.
Yeah. So I think we kind of touched on this last time, but because you've got that nice timeline of, you've built up the family a bit more, and you have found out, you've got some start and end dates. Obviously, you've got your ancestor David Hearn being born in India in 1864, and his little sister being born 9 years later in 1873. So you've got that 9-year period where you definitely know they're in India, and then obviously your family could have been out there before and a little bit after there as well. So the next thing would be to find their actual birth records, to get the dad's occupation potentially, and to get more precise details, because at the moment you've just got the merest glimpse and tantalising clue, haven't you, from the census. And then, so in addition to finding out their birth records, then it would be also good to find, I would search in the military records, so the soldiers' records, and see whether he's out there serving in the British Army, because sometimes the soldiers had posting after posting, and they're just spend a long time out of the UK. It could be that, and also the marriage for them. Have you got a marriage for David Hearn, born in 1864, for his parents? Have you mentioned that? Sorry if I
For his parents, because it's so much earlier, I'm a little bit terrified of it. But I did find a hint that was suggesting they were married in Ireland in 1862.
Okay, nice. Okay.
But I've highlighted this as one of my search tasks because I don't have any concrete details on it, and I think, do I need to use family search to find that out?
You could use Family Search, or you could use the genealogist for their overseas birth, marriage, and deaths. And there's Roots Ireland as well, which is good for obviously for Irish records. So this is all really, really exciting stuff, and the fact he's in Ireland as well, that makes it, it doesn't contradict the fact that he could have been in the army. So it's always nice when things, even if they're not definitely proving anything, they're building up a picture which is kind of being consistent and not alarming. Yeah.
Yeah. And going back to what you're saying, to look for the birth records of the children, obviously 2 of them were born in India. Where am I looking for those birth records? Are they still on the GRO?
So from what So I don't know this in theory, I only know it in practice. So what I mean by this is I've got some ancestors who were born overseas, and I found the information different ways. So for instance, my grandfather, who was born in Nairobi in 1920, then I found, I don't know whether his birth or his baptism, I found that on the genealogist. But then my great aunt, who was born in Rio de Janeiro, then I ordered a certificate for her from the GRO, and I had to order a paper certificate. It's kind of very old school, not using the digital, how you can get a little JPEG or a PDF nowadays if it's for a birth in England or Wales, as long as it's not a modern one. Because it was overseas, it's still the old school order a certificate, and I think it cost me about £12. Can't remember exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So there's a few different ways to go about it. So that's my answer's a bit waffly. I know there's a few different ways you can get the information, but I can't tell you it's not something I do often enough that I can give you a really good, clear, confident answer. So my idea would be, yes, search GRO, but if you can get the information via a website that you already have a subscription to, then that's obviously cheaper and quicker, isn't it?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Much more appealing.
much more appealing. So I think that needs to be your hit list for that. And then Find My Past to Know is really good for army records from well before, from like a century before you need it. So by the time you're looking in the 1860s for army records, and sometimes you'll find the collections of births and marriages, so you're looking for the soldiers' service records, or and muster rolls, anything you can do to help timeline and get further details about your soldier ancestor, but also timeline where they were serving. And then sometimes the soldiers' records, depending on what kind of records they are, because there's lots of different kinds of records, then they'll mention the children, like the dependents, because obviously it's really important to know who the dependents are, because if a pension needs to happen or whatever. Yeah. So they could provide you with some children and family information. The military records could provide you some family information, but sometimes you're going to have to be looking for specific births and marriage records, which may be specific army births and marriage records. And so sometimes you'll find, broadening out a little bit, sometimes you'll find baptism records with the soldiers' children listed in the local parish church. Let's say it was in England, with other people's non-military children getting baptized, but then others so there's a few different collections. And with the overseas records, so some of them might be the specific army birth or army marriage records, but then there's also like High Commission records, which is what my grandpa would be in, and what my great aunt would be in, my granny, because their fathers weren't at that time in the military. They were just British people overseas, so the records would get kept by the High Commission. So there's lots of slight variables, yeah.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a lot.
But it's all really doable. So I think me and you need to make a list and then go off and search for them, and then we can report back. And I think that will shed a lot of light on a few more precise details of when they were in India. And the most important thing is like why they were in India. Why was they in India, and what were they doing there?
Yeah, I'm excited to find that out. It's
Hmm.
a nice little intriguing mystery. I've got a few little odds and sods that have appeared in doing this search. Like, again, like I said, I've got this Julia who could be called, this is the daughter, who could be called Elizabeth Julia, but her mother was also called Elizabeth Julia. So I don't know whether they just switched the names around just to stop it being so confusing, despite the fact that the son was called David and his son was called David. So I've got a few bits to search there. And aside to that is I found it, doing my census search was actually really easy this time because the birth had been born in India. When you get the search results and it says born in India, it was just like great because obviously like Julia's quite a common name, David's quite a common name. So the India aspect really made the search quite pleasing, quite easy to a good degree for when I can find them.
Yeah.
But obviously on every census they appear on, when they're in England, it says born in India. And it just really made it feel really firm and concrete. I was like, oh, this is so easy. I don't, and it helped me as well distinguish the gaps of who they are, because having 3 Davids, I know the middle one's always going to be India. And then now with Julie as well, she was also India. So that really, really helped me tie things together nicely. Yes, what else have I got to say here? Yeah, again, this might not be right. There's a potential David John Hearn who's got a World War One pension ledger, but it says I need to subscribe to Full 3 to get that. But then this is the son, but looking at how old he was in 1911 census, he was 47. Not likely to have served at all, is he?
No, he's not likely to have served, but
I think he'd been 50 when war started.
yeah, there were a few, a few people who signed up and fudged their age when they were too young, and there were a few people at the other end of the scheme as well who were too old. So it does make it less likely.
And then it wouldn't, obviously accidentally, they've got the same name, it wouldn't be the father because he'd have been a zillion. Well, not a zillion. He'd have been in 70s.
So that's really, really unlikely.
That's really unlikely. So potentially I'm ruling it out straight away. It's not related to my David.
Yes. So with the David John Hearn, and you working out that your ancestor would be 47 at the time the First World War started, then I would do my normal old safety check thing, which isn't, as you know, comprehensive, because if there are a few David John Hearns and one's born in India, there could be other ones. So, but I would just go to Free BMD. Okay, it's only got England and Wales on it, and I would just search how many other David John Hearns are there? How many David Hearns are there? How many possible other ones could this be getting in a muddle with? And if there's, as you say, a zillion David Hearns that ancestry could be getting in a muddle with, and telling you there's a World War One pension record and there isn't, because he's on the old end, isn't he? But if you find from your Free BMD kind of very rough scout, you think that actually this is quite a rare combination of names. There's not many. This is worth looking into, because maybe I have got somebody who was just really pig-headed and he wanted to serve. And I mean, like military things do run in the family. And so let's say his dad had served in India. The more connections somebody has to a line of work, the more normal it seems. Like a family which is very not military, it's hard for them to branch up to be a military family. It's that kind of, whereas you sometimes get runs and runs of people who just keep serving in the military. It just seems normal as a go-to occupation option for them on the point of consideration when they embark in the world of work, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if it's wrong of me, but every time I'm like researching a strand from a tree, I always get a bit disappointed when the age ranges are like, this isn't going to hit a war. Because I'm like, oh, this one will be on like World War One or World War Two, but then it's like, well, no,
Yeah,
they've avoided, and then in some ways it's like, well, no, it's good they've avoided it, but
yeah,
from like my perspective, I want the documents, I want some intrigue and war
yeah.
stories.
I mean, that's so some families you do have people who just do the generations do keep hitting the wars. So my ancestors do keep hitting the wars. So one of my great grandpas served in the Boer War, and he was still young enough, so he served in the First World War. And then another of my great grandpas served in the First World War. He was still young enough, so he served in the Second World War. And then all four of my great grandpas served in the First World War, and both my grandpas and both my grannies served in the Second World War. So it's like I've got 100% everybody serving to so many people. They just kept being the wrong generation. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then another point is people always say, like you hear people say, "Oh, it's always the uncles who died." But so if you're thinking about young men and they haven't had any children yet, because obviously married men did serve, but they were called up later. So if you're talking about young men and they tend not to have been married, tend not to have had children yet, they went off to war. If they died, then they are going to be an uncle with no direct descendants. So back to your point, that's another, we always say search out all the siblings. So it's always useful to know about the siblings, like your siblings just here have helped you narrow down the time frame that the family was in India. Another time, the siblings can help with DNA. Another time, if you are eager to learn more about war records, understand how the war impacted your family, by researching out all the siblings, there's very possibly an uncle, a great great uncle, 2 times great uncle, however, that you have in your family who died in the war, and his memory has been lost. Like we've talked about that before, haven't we? And doesn't take much, it doesn't take many generations before they completely get forgotten from the hand-me-down memories.
Yeah, I mean, this makes me feel a little bit sweaty, I have to say, because I know I've found like some siblings on certain strands where have I started saying strands? Anyway, where they've potentially got RAF records, and top of my head, I can't remember who that is, and then I'm terrified that maybe I've not put that on my research log. I feel like I need to collect and collate a list of at least like 4 or 5 potential siblings on different trees or different parts of my trees, and then splurge and try and research them all in one go.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
like I say, I'm not 100% sure. I think it might be someone called Benjamin. Anyway, I'll have to research that and like see if I've been a good boy on my research log. But yeah, I'm keen to do some more war research. So.
Mm. And it's one of those things as well that a bit more, like when I was waffling about those potential overseas birth and marriage records, a few minutes ago. Then with the war records, there's a whole different bunch of records that you could look at depending on whether you're looking at the First World War or the Second World War. Some of them are really comprehensive. Some of them are more specialists, only going to deal with a subset of people who served in the armed forces. So the more you know about your ancestor, their family, like they always bang on about how many other people are there by that name.
Mm.
Because in the First World War, for instance, I can't remember, it's something like, I'm going to say this wrong. I think it's about, I'm going to say it and then someone can correct me. I think it's about 7 million people served in the British and Commonwealth armed forces. And then, and I think at the time it would be like they'd be called British and Imperial Forces. And then, no, and then out of those, the majority of them were from the British Isles. So I think it's about, I'm gonna say it. I think it's about 4.5 million were from the British Isles. So it's a vast majority. But what it means is, you're going, oh, Helen, don't set yourself up to have to do an apology next time. What it means is that you're going to get a lot of people by the same name. So it's like that same thing with doing your family history. You need to keep building. My point I'm trying to make is, not, I'll move away from the facts, which may or may not be correct. The principle is right, that millions of people served in the First World War, but many, many people by the same name. So the more you know about your family, the more you're that person you're trying to research, the better, because if you do manage to find, say, service records, if it has their parish of birth written on it, if it has any next of kin, if it has any children, if it has any age, if it has any previous occupation before they signed up to serve, all of those clues, if you don't know what your ancestor did, if you don't know what they did before they joined the war, if you don't know which parish they were born in, if you don't know any of these things, when you do even find the correct record, you're still not going to be sure it's the correct record. So the more data you can get about them can help you identify that you have got the correct record when you do find a record. The more you've done your kind of broad picture, how many people are there by that name with that rough age, then you know how many other possible contenders there are. The more you ask family members, has anybody got a medal? Has anybody got a photo? Because the medals from the festival certainly will have the name, rank, number thing on it, which is going to be invaluable to tracking down the right records. Yeah. So it's kind of not just one thing by itself, it's lots of things together.
Okay, cool.
Well, so you haven't done anything wrong, and basically pretty much with family history, if you any time spent on any aspect will help another aspect that you might not be able to foresee at the moment at some point down the line.
Yeah, it's making me feel a bit lazy though. Like, you've said it before about eliminating the number of people who could be called X, Y, and Z in a certain area. And I struggle to want to do that because I guess it's not immediate. It's not that quick hit. You're doing kind of what I call negative space work. You're looking at things that are nothing to do with your relative, but you are eliminating obstacles.
But it's just like a really quick search. I think why I feel it's really important. So years ago, I can't even remember how many years ago, 15 years ago, I can't remember, a long time ago. And then I found my Anne Grant ancestor up in Golspie in Sutherland. And I was like, well, yeah, I found her. And then it didn't take me long. I can't remember how. I realised there were actually 3 of them, 3 girls born called Anne Grant, all born within a year or 2 of each other. And so suddenly I was like, wait a minute, you can't just leap because you feel like it onto somebody and go, yeah, right name, right age, right place, that's my girl. Because if there are other people who are in the right place with the right name and the right age, and you don't know about them, you don't know that you've just jumped on the wrong horse and you're galloping off into the distance down the wrong branch of your family tree, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it's not a waste of time, and it's not like, I have to say, I don't do it really comprehensively. It's just like it's just like having a weather eye. Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I don't know. I struggle with it. I think there's just something a little bit lazy in me that just doesn't want to do that. I think it's because I know it'll just dazzle me and it'll put me into that fear factor. And I'm like, oh my God. Like David Hearn. Imagine like looking on that for birth, marriages, and deaths, and he just comes on 100,000 people. I'd be like, well, how can I ever know it's true? That's just me. Anyway, he was born in India, so it's just nice and easy. That's nice.
That is much better. Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you, David.
Yes. I've been struggling with my own things this week. Shall I tell you what I've been struggling with?
Please do.
So one thing I've been struggling with, I've been trying to build a quick and dirty tree for one of my DNA matches, and this is something I'm not very good at and not very confident at. And the lovely Karen Evans helped me because I got really stuck on my DNA and I just didn't know. I was building myself up into a big drama in my head about all the whole big complicated situation. Anyway, she looked at it and she said, I just need to do work doing quick and dirty trees. So
What is a quick and dirty tree?
Oh, so basically, normally when you do your family history, before you put any details on your tree, you've researched it and you're feeling super confident. You've potentially even got a few bits of information which are all tallying. So you might have detail from a birth record and you might have some details from the census. They match up with each other. You're like, yep, it's all checking out. I feel confident these are the right people. You put it on your tree. And if I'm really honest, you may just have the census, but you're confident for whatever reason, the kind of things you've worked out in your head, or maybe a more formal approach, you are confident it's correct. So you've added the stuff to your tree. So you've done thorough, comprehensive research. You've been careful. You've not rushed it. You've looked out for hippo traps you might fall into, like what I was just saying about it could be lots of people by the same name or whatever it is. You feel confident you've done accurate, solid research. So with a quick and dirty tree, it's a bit of a nerve-wracking thing. You've got your person on your DNA match list, they're a person alive today, you know that they're looking like they're going to be like potentially a second cousin or a third cousin. So you share a 3 times great grandpa or 4 times great grandpa. So, but obviously let's say it's your 3 times great grandpa or grandparental couple, then a lot has happened in that time. Like many, many decades of life have happened. Many generations have happened. The 3 times great grandparents have had your 2 times great grandchild, haven't they? And they had other children as well. And then that 2 times great one has had a great grandfather or great grandmother, and then that one has had a grandparent, and then that one's had your mum or dad. So, but equally on the other branches from this 3 times great grandparental couple, there have been lots of other babies getting born and lots of other generations happening. And your DNA match is at the bottom of one of those other mystery lines. So what you're trying to do is you've got your DNA match. You're like, I'm fascinated to find out why and how this person fits on my tree. So you're going to start building a tree back from them. But basically all you know about them is you've got their name. You might look at their profile and it might say they're in their 40s. It might say they live in America or whatever it is. And so then you have to start trying to research them from a kind of cold start, this random person that I know. But you don't want to spend a million years on it because you've got a lot to do. You're like, we know how much there is to do in family history. You're trying to get the answer, how they match to you as quickly as possible. So you're just doing lots of speedy research. And when you see things which look warm, you're like, wicked, and you build on that. So my person, I won't say their surname, but they're called Clarence. And then this is a bit like your David. Their dad was called Clarence, and their dad was called Clarence, and then eventually get to a Fred. But so anyway, I'm getting my head around the fact, like the fact that you just have to be a bit maverick. You have to start researching a completely different country, and it's kind of thrilling because you're just slamming it all together really quickly. And it is useful. This would be really useful to establish why this person matches me, because they're in a group of people who I can't really. I don't really know much about this little cluster I've made, and if I can find some concrete information how this person matches me, find out they're my biggest match in this group, then I'm hoping they're going to shed light, hoping they're going to provide some concrete evidence that I am related to a branch I want to be related to. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then once you are established with that,
Yeah.
then transfer that to your main tree. Once you
Yes.
that stops it being dirty.
Yes. Yeah. So what I've actually done is like there's lots of different ways you can do it. So you can have 2 trees on Ancestry. Yeah. And that would be the safe thing to do because you're doing maverick research which could be wrong. And so you don't want other people to see it. I'm actually not doing it on Ancestry. I'm actually doing it on Family Tree Maker because I just want to do it on Family Tree Maker. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then if you do it on Ancestry, when you can have one big tree and you can add people and then you can unrelate them, remove the relationship. And so you have lots of little floating branches in this big working DNA tree. Yeah. So imagine it's like a kind of notice board with lots of scrappy little small family trees in it. Yeah. And you're just working on one of your so it's a big notice board with lots of little scrappy, quick and dirty trees in potentially. And you're just going to work on one little scrappy section.
Nice. I've accidentally done this then, haven't I? When I was looking for my Mary Ann Briggs, Wood Briggs, Taylor Jackson, whatever, I created a tree just for her because I was sure I was looking for these other relationships, and then there was this guy called James. She might have been married to, but she wasn't. So I just threw it together to see if the facts fitted, and they didn't. So I deleted it. So that's a quick and dirty tree.
It is, and it's funny, isn't it? Because it's probably in a way something that we've always done, but I guess because DNA in the last kind of 5 or 10 years, it's been something that's just grown up, and so people have learned little tactics and strategies, and then put fun labels on them, yeah, and made it into a thing, not just something we do, but they've made it into an actual tactic.
You're more likely to use it with DNA then.
Only because you've just got so many matches, I guess. So with you or with anyone, when we're just doing our family history, you're going to proceed more slowly with fewer people. Like you're building out your branch with it when you're doing your normal family history. And even if you find, say, 7 siblings for your direct ancestors, it's slowly building out your tree, isn't it? Whereas and so you might find somebody, as you just said, with your wood person, that you're going to see if you can learn out more about her. But she's one person, whereas with your DNA match list, you've got, okay, there's tens of thousands of people. Most of them aren't going to be any interest to you, but there's going to be potentially a few hundred people who are going to be of great interest to you. But there's still a few hundred people that you want to. So that's why the speed is the name of the game. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm still baffled by DNA.
Well, I'm baffled by it too. That's why, so this is quick and dirty something we mention all the time, and I have had a little bit of a go at it before, but I guess this time I'm really invested. I really, really want the answer. I really want it to work for me. So suddenly the stakes feel higher, and I'm more engaged. And yeah, should I tell you my other thing I've been stuck on, and I wasn't really expecting to get stuck on this. I thought this would be easy. Had my plan, writing up life stories about ancestors, put them on my little website just to gradually collect and curate a whole bunch of family stories, which my family can dip along and have a read if they wish. And so I've been doing like some random people, like Mary Ann Pickering that I've mentioned 6 trillion times. And then I thought, this is silly because the people who my living family are interested in are going to be things like my granny, aren't they? Like much closer in time. They're not going to be interested in somebody from the early Victorian period from the get-go. They want to know about our more recent past family members. So I started writing up my granny, and then I found this really hard because, so with a distant ancestor, let's say you find out 9 or 10 records about them, about their life, and you pull out the facts from it, and you find out the facts related to the other family members. So, for instance, if it was a census, anything else, you can say, oh, and their dad was a farmer, and blah, 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 blah. And you piece it together into this little story, and you write it up, and you're like, good. And then with somebody you actually know, suddenly it gets a lot more pixels. You want a more granular picture. So I know lots about my granny. So when I was a little kid, my granny used to look after me sometimes. I know illnesses my granny had. I know hobbies my granny had. I know funny stories she said. So that was all like trying to gather all this information. It's tricky because there's a lot of information. And then also I was like, well, it's my granny, but I felt I didn't also want to kind of hog her. I felt very conscious that she has 4 children, all of whom are still alive and well, touch wood. So she's their mum. So I felt like they should have first take on the pulling together of her family story. Anyway, so what I've done is I've published my half-baked thing on my blog, and I've said this is a work in progress. If anybody sees anything wrong, if they want it said differently, if they want to add things to it, let me know. And we can just have it as a growing place where we collect stuff about her. But it felt really tricky.
That is tricky because I don't think you've done it wrong, though. I think it's always going to come from an author, isn't it? Someone's voice is going to tell that story, and that's your voice. But what you're saying is very true, isn't it? It's a different role. For your granny's role to her children would be very different to how it was with you. So it's a completely different person, even though it's the same person. That's a really interesting thing to consider.
And they would remember her in phases of her life that those phases of her life had gone by the time I met her.
Yeah, or you were so young that you were oblivious to this going on, and it was more about her interactions with you.
Yeah. And also I'm the oldest of her grandchildren by I've got a brother who's a little bit younger than me, and then there's a big gap before any other people in our generation happen. And so I feel a bit responsible to some of them. She did meet all of her grandchildren, but she didn't meet all of her great-grandchildren. So now suddenly, this is somebody who I knew really, really well. Like, I've got her kitchen table in our kitchen, and it's a blue, I think it's called Formica, just these real classic tables from the 50s or whatever. So I've got it in our kitchen now, but I can remember being so small, I stood next to the kitchen. She used to put snacks on for it. My eyes just peeped over the edge. So I can remember seeing the snacks at, like 90 degrees to my eyes because I was so little when she had that table. Yeah.
That's cool.
It's cool, isn't it? Yeah, my mum was poorly, so my granny was looking after us. Yeah.
Cool. I mean, it's not cool, but it's nice. It's really lovely that you've got that table as well. That's,
I know, I was like, I'm definitely having it. It's not a special table. It's just like, you can all see it's such a right old Nana table, just a pale blue Formica table. But
yeah.
yeah.
I've got my granddad's coffee table, and I've got no special memories of it at all. It's not like, oh, we were all sat around this coffee table and played cards. I mean, we did used to do stuff like that, but
Mm.
I've got it, and I can't describe it to you. I'm proud that it's his.
Mm.
Absolutely no childhood associations of me, my granddad, and this table. It's
Mm.
just, it's a possession that was his that's now mine.
Mm.
I don't know, it's weird. I'm more proud about the fact that we've got some, I'm probably going to pronounce this wrong. My granddad was like a massive gardener,
Mm.
and he like loved his flowers and stuff. And when we moved house for the first time, or when I moved for the first time, I took a cutting of some, I'm going to say this wrong. Is it anemones?
Mm.
Flower, took cutting of that, and then from every house that I've moved to, I've always taken a cutting of the flower, and it's always survived and it's always grown. And then like every time I see these flowers, I'm like, that's my granddad's flower. And
Wow.
so his flower is actually in lots of different houses that I've lived in. So it's kind of like we've left a trail of him there.
Wow. That's
So
really special. It's very, very green fingered as well.
I like gardening. It's very tranquil, isn't it? It's
We should ask our, because that's a really special thing. And so you need to tell your kids that and to pass on the thing. And I only know, with my random asking people facts thing. So I know one of my great grandfather's favourite flowers were aconites. And I know that because my mum told me that. That's so random. I don't know who anyone else's favourite flowers are. But we should ask these more little quirky things of each other and of any of our living family members. Because now whenever I see aconites at the start of the year, then I always think of him.
Mm.
There's little ways of keeping people in your memory. And he died when I was 6 months old, so I don't have any personal memories of him. There's a photo of him holding me, so I knew he helped me, but I obviously can't remember that. Yeah. Mm.
I've got a similar one with my nana. She used to, she was the hub of our family. She was like, we all went to her house, and that was where all the big family meals happened. So all the kids and the grandkids came, and she was always cooking and always making something. So like on bonfire night, she would always make toffee from scratch, and like, everything was just from scratch and amazing. And she always made blackcurrant jam.
Mm.
And it was, I absolutely loved it. And then it was like this sad thing that when she died, and I had like the last tub of her jam that she'd made. I was like, oh my God, this is the last time I'll be having this made by her.
Mm.
Then when I got an allotment, I then got myself some blackcurrant bushes, and then made it a tradition that I would always make at least one jar just to sort of keep her recipe alive and stuff. But
Mm.
I love that because it keeps me tied to her in a different way.
Mm. Mm. That's very nice.
Mm.
I love this side of family history. I mean, this is like doing the research and the detective work is really exciting and intriguing, and it's definitely good fun. But then family history is such a strange old hobby, isn't it? Because it has all these other aspects, like you loving gardening and growing blackcurrants to make jam to remind you of your granny. It's,
Yeah.
it's all family history. It's
It
weird.
is. Oh, well, I wouldn't be doing those things if it wasn't for them, probably. I would like, you get told, don't you, like, oh, your granddad was really green fingered, and you've got it too. And so you get that
Mm.
sort of a little sense of pride, or I'm gonna go do this because my granddad would be proud of me, and
Mm.
all that sort of aspect. Or is it in your DNA and it's been passed down that way? Who knows? But
Or both.
yeah. DNA character traits on ancestry. Can you make jam?
Yes.
More likely to make jam.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, this isn't a personal family history thing, but so I do like gardening, but sometimes I find it quite tough, and you get really muddy, and I get really muddy hands and everything else. And I do always think of land girls when I'm coming in and scrubbing my hands, because there's like a Second World War like little guidebook, and I think I got a replica one. You go to the Imperial War Museum, or whatever, and they have all those replica ration books and replica make do and mend books and stuff. And I like that sort of stuff. And with the land girl information that I read, that wasn't in a might have been a book. I can't remember where I found it. Anyway, it said, "Don't worry about having horrible muddy hands if you're a land girl. Then you just need to have soap and a nail brush and scrub your hands, and you can have just as nice hands as anybody else." So I always think of land girls when I'm scrubbing my hands after gardening.
That's cool.
Silly, isn't it? And
Well,
another thing I think of with gardening is when I'm gardening, it's particularly in the spring, and you get out in the garden, you haven't been out for a few months, or I won't have been out through the winter for a few months, and I'm kind of taking stock of everything and getting it all going again, and it's just fun, and I like being in the fresh air and all that. And then I do always think of our ancestors, because for me, it's just I want to make the garden look a bit pretty. But if you were, a couple of centuries ago, definitely, and even in more recent times, getting out in that garden and making sure you've got food there is not a laughing matter, just how important it is, and how hungry you'd be and how empty your larder would be by the end of the winter and stuff.
yeah, definitely, and it's really hard work as well. It's you're relying on the weather. Again, I'm speaking from having an allotment here. Like, had an allotment, did it for fun, did a lot of flower stuff, but then was like, right, we'll do lots and lots of veg. So we did quote unquote lots and lots of veg, and you don't get much yield for the like. It was quite a good plot, but you get a couple of meals out of it, or you'll get an abundance of courgettes and nothing else, and you don't have any recipes for courgettes. Oh my God, courgettes. But it was really hard work. You're really proud of what you've done, but you're doing it for the novelty value of it. And then I was constantly thinking, like, God, in the olden days, you were like relying on this for yourself.
Mm.
It's been really stressful.
Mm.
Like, if my sweet corn's not going to grow and it's going to come out looking weird, or you don't pick it at the right time,
Mm.
and it's like, oh, no bother. It was fun growing it, but
Mhm.
we weren't depending on it like other people were.
Mm.
Crazy.
What are you going to do for next year? Are you going to do the thing which I'm really excited for you to do, to try and track down those overseas births and that potential Irish marriage?
Yes, I think that they are the big interest points. So I'm going to do that. I've got a couple of other little mysteries. I've got a Catherine Hearn, who's the daughter of the David Senior. How did I find her? Wow, I went high pitched then. She appears at some point, so I'm a little bit worried about her. Oh, I found her. Oh no, I don't know where I found her. Yeah, so I need to see if she exists or died young or what. But I feel like I just want to flesh that one out.
Mm.
It seems to me, I think I tied her in with Julia. Sorry, I'm going into this now. I tied her in with Julia, who then was obviously a servant and lived in various houses. So I think I'm hoping that that's what's happened to her and she hasn't just died young. So she's like become a servant and gone off to work in various big houses. So I want to search her as well. I also have a son of David John Hearn the middle, who's called Edward. But then I got another one where another child appeared called Edmund. I think it could be the same person, and I wasn't paying attention at the point of adding everyone to the census, so I thought I clicked yes. But now I'm like, maybe I've got the same person on twice, so I need to go do a little bit of housekeeping on my tree and check.
Mm.
But the fun part, yes, I am going to be looking for this marriage and tracking these birth certificates for India.
Mm.
What about you? What are you going to do?
I'm going to carry on with my writing family stories things, writing it up in a way that somebody else in my family might want to read at some point.
That's interesting. Sorry, I know I'm going back on what you were saying now, but you're saying writing it in a way that people might want to read, but then you were questioning whether you were giving the right view of your granny.
Mm.
But surely your perspective of your granny is interesting for other people to read.
Mm. I just want to say, so I started off with what I've written about my great granny, just like finding her on the 1921 census, finding her on passenger lists. I think those are the only two documents I've added to the blog so far. And then, so it's like quite a formal family history take on, you go to the public record collections, things which are digitized or in archives or whatever, and you get the documents about them, you extract stories from them. And I was just like, for her children, that's just weird. Because she's like, Mum. Yeah. So, and I do actually know, kind of belies the fact I do actually know lots of things about her, but I still felt like it was important to include this documentary paper trail. Maybe it's because I just do too much family history, but I was like, no, this stuff needs to go in as well, even though as a regular family member, you wouldn't kind of necessarily think to include those documents for a very recent fellow family member. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll build up over time. It'll become sane and it'll become a good blend of family history and family memories and all of it. It's just surprised how difficult it was and what I was trying to. It was harder than writing about a Victorian who I'd never met.
Yeah.
No one else can remember either.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so I'm going to carry on doing that, and so I'll do some on her, and then I'll do some on my other granny as well.
Lovely.
It's fun. It's fun. It does make me think, well, whether I should. Oh, it's terrible what I'm going to say, but I should stop subscribing to the other websites for a minute while I just. But I'm not going to be able to because I know I'm going to need to check things out and keep them. So I'll just carry on.
Depends on how focused you are, doesn't it, I guess?
But also, whenever you start writing anything, whenever I start writing anything, I always know, I think I've got all the information I need, and I never have. So I always need to go and find out more stuff.
Yeah. And you can quite easily get broken off and go off on a tangent and then realise you need to go back anyway. Oh, man.
Okay, so that's us. We shall be reporting in next week. Thank you to anybody who's listened. We really, really appreciate it. And if you want to keep up with our e-newsletter, we do say it every week, but we do get new listeners, so we don't want anyone to miss out. We do also do a free e-newsletter. It is super helpful. It comes out definitely every Monday. Sometimes we post additional ones through the week as well, but it won't be email overload, don't worry. The main one, which is really great for information, is on Monday, and it has proper, practical, detailed, nitty-gritty clues about how to do your family history. And we cover a different topic every week. And to get that e-newsletter is the main thing. So you need to go along to www.family-tree.co.uk/newsletter sign -up. Have I said it right?
No, -sign -up.
-sign -up. So family-tree.co.uk/newsletter -sign -up. Is that right?
I just don't know anymore.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
And
it's right.
okay. And it's genuinely useful. I even had somebody contact us this week and said, could they copy it onto their e-newsletter for their family history group? Yeah,
Nice.
I know. So I said, yes, they could, as long as they say it came out with us first, because then we want people to know how useful we are.
Definitely.
Yes, because we are useful. Okay, cheers then. Bye-bye.